Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Camp Raven Knob webinar for Summer Camp 2023. We're excited to have you all here with us this evening. We've got a few things in store for you. We're looking at probably about 25-30 minutes. We're going to keep it brief this evening. If it goes over or goes under, we'll just roll on with it. But uh, first things first, we always want to make sure that if you have questions, be sure to put them in the live chat on YouTube. You do have to be logged in to do that. So just plug away in there and we will answer those questions as we go along. And if we miss something or forget something, we'll be sure to try to address it as quickly as we can. But just be sure to throw a chat in there for just logistical purposes. Go ahead and throw in your troop number and where you guys are from. We're very excited about this summer. We have, over the past month, have made great strides in getting our Tenaroo stuff squared away. Props to all the troops out there that have gotten their scouts entered in, they're registered for sessions, and all that good stuff. March 15th is kind of a whirlwind for everybody involved, and our phones are going crazy, emails and everything, but hopefully we were able to take care of you in a timely manner. And if anybody has any questions about some registration stuff or whatever it may be, always feel free to reach out and let us know. Myself and Wesley and the rest of the admin team are always happy to help any way we can. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and dive on into this here. I do just want to do some updates on Tenaroo, making sure that we're keeping in track with our deadlines and whatnot. April 15th is kind of when we like to see a lot of the registration numbers calm down. It's coming up in a few days. To try to get as many of the scouts as you know that are coming in the system at that point. What that does, it gives us an idea on our materials that we started to order, projections on food and all sorts of stuff that comes with it. So gives us an idea of what to expect and how to best serve you all in the 2 months that come after that point. Of course, after April 15th, there's no worry. If you have some kids that you need to add in, if you get a whole flock of Webelos crossovers, those Air of Lights that are crossing over this time of year, if you get a bunch of those and there's talking about wanting to come to camp, give us a call and let's make sure that we can make that work. I don't see any issue with it at this point. Based off of current numbers, we should be able to accommodate about anything you throw our way. So don't tell those kids they can't come. We definitely want them to come experience Raven Knob and have a great positive first experience at summer camp with the troop. So it's always a different experience as you move up from Cub Scouts into Scouts BSA, and we think it's a great place to enjoy that first summer camp at Raven Knob. So don't worry about the April 15th. You get into a bind, you need to change some stuff. You just let us know, and we're happy to help any way I can. After that point, you can still go in and edit your sessions if you need to switch, somebody from basketry to canoeing or whatever it may be. You're still able to do that. If you need to increase your spots, decrease your spots, whatever it may be, you'll need to give us a call and we can do that really quick over the phone or just shoot us an email and we can do that as well. Your balance paid, everybody should, for the most part at this point, have your $150 paid for each scout that's attending. And then those final payments are due by the time you get to camp. We like to have it all done a week before you get there, but we understand there might be some changes last minute. You may need to pay on site. On site, we take a check or card, whatever works for you all. So just keep that in mind as we move forward, that we'll clear those balances out as we get closer. We're not going to dive into the Tenaroo system tonight. We've got the two previous webinars that go over all of that information. So hopefully you should be well versed at this point. And if you're not, we got Wesley here that's always willing to help on the Tenaroo side of things, getting folks plugged in. All righty. Bouncing in, I'm going to turn this over to Wesley to talk about provisional scout options.
All right, hey everybody. Hope you're all doing well here as we move even closer to the summer by the day. So, want to talk to you just about a couple provisional options. First off, the typical provisional scout experience. So essentially, it's just like spending a week at camp that you would with your troop, just with a different troop, usually a different week. So this is a good option for any of those kids that you may have in your troop that they didn't know the date and they have a vacation already scheduled for the week you're coming, or any other kind of trip or something's come up and they still want to go to camp, but they can't make it with your unit, there's still an option for them to come to camp. They just need to, they can come through the provisional route there. The Raven Repeat, we always have fun about week 3 doing the They Can Come Back video. If you ever want to, they can come back. They haven't came to camp yet, but they can still come back. And the cool thing about this is for those kids that came to camp and just had such a blast that they want to come back. Maybe there's some kids in your troop that are getting, maybe they're 16, 17, getting a little behind on their merit badges they need or something like that. And they can come back for another week as well. At a discounted price as well. So you're not paying the full price that you would for just a provisional scout. And then day camper program is typically used by more of our local troops. So essentially they come from the morning all to the afternoon. They don't stay overnight. Lunch is included in that price, but breakfast and dinner are not. And then they can take merit badges the same way they would if they were staying in camp. So those are 3 great options. If you have any questions about how to sign up for these, you can find it over our website, ravennob.com/provisional, and it'll list out all of those options for you and allow you to sign up as well. Awesome.
Sweet. And Wesley, I'll add to that. A lot of times we get the question, is Raven Repeat just for, the last week of camp or whatever it may be? No, we offer this every week of camp. If your troop is coming week 5, but you've got a scout that wants to come for a second week and they want to come a week before that or a week after, we will make that work, no problem at all. So the form to sign up is different. You don't use Tenaroo. It's just a online form you fill out on the website. Pretty sweet. Parents can do it rather quickly, pay online, and we'll get them plugged in and added up. The way our provisional troop works is that we have a host troop in camp each week, sometimes a few, but typically folks that are very familiar with Raven Knob and very accustomed to hosting scouts that maybe aren't as familiar, or scouts that from just in general they from different places. So they do a really good job of bringing out the best in everybody and making them feel like part of the team. So we've got a great group of troops that we work with and leaders that really take the time to make sure that our provisional scouts have a terrific experience. Personal note, I was a provisional scout my first time at Raven Knob, and I did that about 12 times over again. My troop did not attend Raven Knob, but I wanted to. So they just kept taking me back, and now I'm here. So
I get that question sometimes also where it's like, is it just going to be, my kid's not going to know anybody. They're just going to be with a random troop. And that's like Hunter was saying, that's not typically the case. We're not going to throw your scout in with a troop that's never been to Raven Knob before. We know the troops that we tend to place provisionals with, and they ensure that your scout will have just a great experience as he did if your troop was here. So I get that question sometimes. So I wanted to kind of quell those fears there a little bit.
Absolutely. I still keep in contact with a lot of the scoutmasters that took me in over the years at camp. So if Carter Crump is watching this, you are one of those guys. Also Troop 398 from Raleigh. So always good folks to camp with. All righty. So moving on here, we're going to turn it over to Ash Dempsey to talk about some program updates and our required documents.
Sure. Thank you, Hunter. We have spent some time recently, as we usually do this time of year, checking on our merit badge prerequisite list. These are requirements that are not completed during the week at summer camp for a number of different reasons, but predominantly it's because there are certain things that we can't do for the week at summer camp. Whether it's keeping a reptile for 3 months or things that you have to do in your home with your family and things like that, whatever it might be. So that list is on there. Some of these prerequisites are also just requirements. You have to be able to pass the swim test to do several things at aquatics. I know you have to do the cyber chip in order to take a couple of the merit badges that require that and things like that. So there's a few things there, some of which are sort of more to do before camp, some of which are more to do after camp. But they're the things that we're not going to do that are not completable at camp. So just make sure you pay attention to that list. Just about every summer camp has a list like this where there are kind of various things there. We'll look at our website here in a little bit, and I'll kind of show you exactly where to find that. It's quite easy to find, but the premise there is it's right there on the all sessions and prerequisites list. One particular prerequisite I want to point out is with our ATV program. This is mentioned right here on this slide, and we'll take a look at this a little bit later as well. If you have any scouts in the ATV program, there are two things that they specifically have to do before we can enroll them in that program. There's an online training that's like a safety course basically on driving the ATVs. And that's something that takes several hours, and there's not really time for them to do it at summer camp. So we want each scout participating in ATV to do that prior to coming to summer camp. There's additionally a hold harmless agreement that will need to be signed by the scouts' parents, and then we hold on to that as well. So there's a couple things specifically for that program that need to be done in advance, including an online course that does take several hours. Without completing that course, we can't put them on an ATV.
Absolutely. Ash, I'm going to add your screen here. If
Sure.
you want to show folks where they can find the prerequisite list.
Absolutely.
And that ATV stuff, that'd be good.
Sure. So here's sort of our main Raven Knob webpage at ravennob.com. And if we go over here to the program tab, there's all kinds of great things on here that has all kinds of pictures and information about all of our different merit badges and first year camper Raven Scouts program and high adventure things and all of that. But specifically, if we click on this very first link here that says all sessions / prerequisites, if you're ever wondering, what's a list of everything I can do at Raven Knob in alphabetical order? Well, you're in the right place. That's exactly what this page is. It's got a spreadsheet right here that lists every session that we have, the program area that it's associated with, and anything that has to be done outside of camp. So notably, we have some advanced sessions. These are really just sort of additional skill building and fun times for scouts who have already gotten these merit badges. So to do advanced metal work or advanced sailing or advanced rifle, these are people who already have those merit badges but just want to get some more experience with those activities. If there's nothing listed over here, then that means that you don't have to do anything special before camp, and the scouts should be able to complete every requirement at camp. Here's that ATV thing I was mentioning earlier where there's a safety course. You can click right here and it will actually bring up the link to the course and take you there. And there's also a hold harmless agreement. And then anytime you see these numbers, like here on bird study or in aviation or whatever, those numbers are merit badge requirements that are not completed at camp for one reason or another. I'll mention our BSA lifeguard program right here. This one does require the scout to be at least 15 years old and be able to swim 550 yards. That's not our requirement. That is a policy and a requirement for the actual certification. Just about any lifeguard certification you get anywhere requires people to be 15 years old. That's not something that we can be flexible on. I mentioned the cyber chip earlier. That's here for the digital technology merit badge. There's a couple of other things like this first aid merit badge. It says they have to be able to show evidence of completion of these merit badges prior to arriving at camp. And there's a couple of other things on that. A lot of the aquatics activities do require completing the BSA swimmer test. One that I'm going to mention specifically for that is the swimming merit badge, which is right down here. Swimming merit badge, you may know this already, but it's not the same thing as learning how to swim. That's what our non-swimmer beginner instruction course is for. Swimming merit badge does require passing the swim test in order to do it because it focuses on actual learning of swim strokes and a couple of water rescues and things like that. Any scouts who are signed up for swimming merit badge and aren't able to complete the swim test, we typically just move them into the instructional swim and kind of help build them back up throughout the week into that. But passing the swim test is required for that. And for a number of the woodworking badges, wood carving, woodwork, things like that, they've got to have the totem shed before coming to camp as well.
Ash, two things for you. Number one, what's our preferred methods on if a kid brings a prerequisite to camp, and what do we do with blue cards?
Those are some great questions. I'll start with the blue card question because that's probably the easier one. The blue cards, I know a number of councils use blue cards to keep track of merit badges. The Old Hickory Council, where Raven Knob is based, is not a blue card council. We don't use them. If you walk up to one of our merit badge counselors and ask them to sign a blue card, they're not going to know what you're talking about because they probably haven't seen them. But in the administration building, we do know what they are and are prepared to help you with those if you need assistance. By far the best and easiest thing you can do with blue cards is at the end of the week, after all of our paperwork has been put into Tenaru will actually print them for you. all the requirements that we put in the Tenaroo system throughout the week, keeping track, in addition to giving you a list of all the requirements at the end of the week with our advancement reports. If you need blue cards for your council, there's a place in the Tenaroo system where you can actually go on there and download/print exactly what you need to reflect all of that. Those won't be accurate, of course, until the end of the week once we have all of our stuff put in. But once you leave camp for the end of the week, whenever you get back home, you should be able to print those blue cards just as needed. Regarding the prerequisites at camp itself, with a couple of these, like the swim test, that'll be pretty clear based on what the Scouts buddy tag shows. And we'll talk here in a minute about doing swim tests prior to camp. But additionally, with any of these that have a requirement there, it's kind of up to you. If it's something that might better be completed after the end of camp, then you don't necessarily have to do anything with that. If it's for like reptile amphibian holding onto a snake for 3 months or whatever it is, you don't have to do that prior to taking the merit badge, if that makes sense. That just means that at the end of the week, your scout will get on the advancement report, it will list all of the other requirements that they did complete, just not that one. If it's something that needs to be done beforehand, such as earning the cyber chip, or I know for emergency preparedness, for example, they have to do first aid merit badge. That's one of the requirements to start emergency preparedness, kind of showing evidence of those things. The best thing you can do is have some sort of a list for your unit that lists all the different things that are taken care of on there. Sometimes things can get a little lost in the wash if you start talking to each individual instructor about what is or is not completed. But probably the best thing you can do is have a list for your unit and just make sure that that's communicated with our administration staff. And we can as well make sure that that happens with each instructor. With some of the courses, they may ask for evidence if people have those, and you can kind of send Scoutmaster signed slips or whatever with the Scouts, or if you want to talk to us in admin, we can also just put them in Tenaroo for you that way.
Yeah, it's very, very easy. If you have a list, if you're keeping a list of these prerequisites and what's checked off, just come by admin and we'll get our staff to plug it directly into the system. Makes it a little bit easier. But if you want to send a note or drop by a session with a Scout, that's great as well. And then also just to mention, in the Tenaroo system, those of you not familiar with it, along with being able to print blue cards, you can print the advancement report that shows requirements completed. And also Tenaroo has officially bounced into the Scout Book world, where you can export that file and upload it directly to Scout Book, which I know will save lots of you hours and hours of time uploading these requirements to Scout Book. So that will be a big win for you all in making it a little bit easier after camp. So keep that in mind. Essentially, when you're in there, you've got a manage button and a reports button. When you're in the event, you hit the reports button and it's going to give you a couple options to print stuff off. So between spreadsheets and PDF documents, and also the file for Scout Book. So should work out pretty well.
I'll go ahead and mention, I know some of these questions that have come up have been responded to in the chat, but I want to just go ahead and mention a couple of these as well. I'll talk about swim checks here in just a moment, but there was a question about the totem chip specifically. They don't have to bring like the actual card with them. If it's marked off in their Scout Book, that should be fine as well. Like we mentioned, the best thing you can do is kind of make a list of all of these for your troop and bring those by admin, and we'll get that taken care of. Regarding swim tests, I'll go ahead and show you kind of, I think we're kind of going to start talking about some forms and things here in a moment anyway. Over back on our website, there's a couple of different places you can look for this, but notably right here under our Scouts BSA summer camp, here's information about registration, all that. On the leaders guide and forms page, there's a number of different forms here. Here's, of course, our leaders guide, program guide, parents guide, and a separate thing about Rampage there. But down here are a number of different guides and forms and things like that. And one thing I want to talk about is the swim check form. That's down here. You can actually, I'll go ahead and open that new tab so we can take a look at it. If you plan to do swim tests with your unit prior to coming to camp, this is the form we'd like you to use for that. That explains kind of how those work and the premise of what's going on there. I'll kind of zoom in some on this here. You can bring a paper copy with you if you'd like to do that. You can give it to the aquatics director on check-in day, and they'll take care of that and color the buddy tags for you. But also you can submit it online in advance at ravennub.com/swim tests. There's a thing there for you to upload a copy of the form if you've got a photo or a scan of it, things like that. Of course, we do offer swim tests on the first day of camp during check-in on the Sunday that you arrive. Many units choose to skip that. By doing the swim test in advance, it makes the check-in day a little bit less hectic for your scouts, and makes it so that they don't have to, wait in line and go get wet at the waterfront and all that as they're getting ready for the week. But certainly either one of those is fine with us. We do ask you to complete these within 6 months of arriving at camp. So a swim test from last summer isn't really going to count there. And that's not just a Raven Knob thing. That's kind of a national sort of recommendation there, is that swim tests be reevaluated every year. This does happen sometimes, unfortunately, where a scout might pass one summer and then they don't go swimming for 11 and a half months, and they come back to camp the next summer and maybe aren't quite as comfortable or whatever it might be. So this is information here about who should be supervising the test and what the tests are. These are very standardized nationally, and then you can kind of check on there. And then we ask, who's authorizing the test and that kind of information there. But that's the form for those and where you can find those. If you want to actually find the page for that over here on SwimChecks, I'll go ahead and click on that. This is the page where you can, once again, download the form, but also there's a fillable form on this swim test page where you can kind of type in your unit name and upload the completed form right here. And we'll actually get sent that. We can print it for you, and our aquatic staff will have that in advance. So feel free to submit it that way. We'll get an email that sends it. If you want to take care of that in advance, you're certainly welcome to.
Yeah, Ash, if you could go over who administers the swim test. I think it's right there in that big gold box.
It is. Yeah, I'll zoom in a little bit on that here. We get the question a lot about who's allowed to administer the swim tests. For many years, and I think most people would assume it's just a lifeguard of some sort. And that's probably okay. But in our preference would be in accordance with the Guide to Safe Scouting, that it be conducted by specifically someone who has a BSA training. The BSA swim test is a little bit different from the YMCA swim test or some of the Red Cross things and whatnot. And so it's best to have someone supervising the event and the test that actually knows what those requirements are supposed to be. Somebody who has been trained in safe swim defense, aquatic supervision, or as a BSA lifeguard or a BSA aquatics instructor should know enough to be able to determine what's going on with that test. That doesn't mean that that person has to serve as the lifeguard. Safe swim defense is a test that you can do, or is a certification that you can do online relatively quickly. But even then, if you're planning to go do swim tests at a local pool or at a YMCA or something like that, even if their lifeguards are kind of guarding the water and performing the surveillance for that test, it would probably be good for you to have a unit leader there that is trained in safe swim defense and understands specifically the different swim strokes and requirements for that test. It's printed right here. Any BSA documentation that you find is going to state it exactly like this. This is the official wording. We just have it kind of copied over here. There's a lot of difference between the swim test and the beginner's test, so just kind of making sure that that's there. If you're only able to get a Red Cross lifeguard or something, we'll probably accept that as well. The biggest thing is those are not always quite as reliable because they don't have BSA training and know exactly what to look for.
Yeah. And Ash, I'll add in, and I think we've mentioned this on previous webinars, oftentimes swim checks are done prior to at a pool, at a local YMCA or whatnot. Keep in mind that Raven Knob is a lake. We do not have a pool. We do lake activities. And there are often times where kids can pass the swim test back home at that pool and then have trouble when they have to essentially part of Swimming Merit Badges is pretty much doing the swim test right off the bat. Again, once that merit badge starts. And so we oftentimes have kids that struggle. So keep that in mind. Just in general, our staff is going to work with those kids because the last thing we want to do is to have to move them over to our instructional sessions, but it happens often. So we want to make sure that you guys understand that could happen, and it's something that we see frequently.
It's definitely. We're very proud of our lake. I was the aquatics director for a number of summers. I really like the lake at Raven Knob, but it is very much a lake, and some scouts that have exclusively swam in pools in their past may be a little hesitant or nervous about the lake. So sometimes people's swimming abilities in the lake doesn't always reflect what they can do in a pool because of anxiety related to watercolor and things like that, or the a little bit of sand or mud in their toes.
The mud does get you sometimes, so, but it wears off after a little while. But I'll mention that oftentimes I'll go down and help the aquatic staff do swim checks, and I enjoy talking with the scouts as I do that. And oftentimes you get a really good swimmer who is used to a heated pool or something like that, and they jump in the water. It's not to say that the water at camp is freezing cold.
It's not.
It's not. In the morning, it is chilly. You'll get used to it rather quickly, though. In the afternoons, it's quite pleasant. But that can often be a shock too. I've seen them about jump up out of the water doing some early morning swim checks every once in a while.
Depending on the time of day, the amount of sun, and how much rain we've had recently, the lake temperature does fluctuate a little bit, but most afternoons it's in the low to mid 70s as far as temperature. The water temperature is, which is quite nice if you ask me.
Yeah, it's perfect, absolutely perfect. All right, Ashton, if you want to, you've covered your swim checks there. Since you're on the website there, do you just want to go ahead and mention the dietary forms that are on there?
Yeah, we can do that. So back over on that same forms, guides and forms page, which is right there on that tab. I'll zoom in a little bit on this one here. One other form that we're going to ask each unit to do prior to coming to camp is this special diet form. This is right here for any participants that you have coming, youth or adult, that have various dietary needs or food allergies and things like that. We're pretty accommodating to a lot of different dietary concerns, but we can't help you unless we know about them. So certainly, campers and leaders that are coming that are vegetarian or need to eat kosher or have allergies to eggs or nuts or whatever it might be, this would be the place to tell us that. So you can, I love that it says 2015 up here. It's a classic form. We've been using it for a lot of years. So you just, for one per unit form here, have you do unit number, council, tell us which week you're coming. And then over here, you can fill out more of these if you have more than 10 scouts, but just let us know the people's names and what their dietary restrictions are so that we can be accommodating to that. If you've got a scout or a leader with, extensive dietary needs, that might be worth a special email or phone call to us to try and see what we can work out there. People are always welcome to bring, additional food supplies from home if necessary. But for the most part, we'd like to think that we can cover things. But we would like each unit to do one of these forms so that we can plan ahead and make sure we order the correct food to have available for everybody at our dining facility.
Yep. Did you talk to Ash? I blurred out for a second there, responded back to Doc Daffner. It's his 41st year at Camp Raven Knob. So I give him a shout out. But Carol will be back this summer. So just so everybody knows. Did you mention if scouts have extensive needs that they're able to bring?
Yes. Yeah, I did say that they can bring additional stuff if there's particularly unique circumstances. As far as where to send the form, you can email that into registration@ravennub.com with all of our other things. There's probably some other places you can submit it to, but registration@ravennub.com is probably the best place. That way we can get it to where it needs to go.
And we'll get this form updated. Max is on the call here administering a lot of our questions. So Max, you could help us get this updated with an email rather than a mail too.
Yes. I'm going to respond to Jamie Farmer's question as well that asks about non-swimmers doing rowing and fishing. We do have fishing available just kind of at your own will on a catch and release basis in both of our lakes throughout the day and the evening throughout the week. We do have a little fishing permit we ask each scout to pick up on Monday that gives them a couple of rules for that. But a lot of scouts enjoy bringing their fishing gear and participating in that throughout the week. As far as rowing goes, in order to do any of the merit badges at aquatics, those do require passing the BSA swim tests, such as rowing merit badge. But if you just want to take a boat out, we do have opportunities for that, even for people who have not passed the swim test. This goes for youth or adults. Anyone who wants to take out a canoe or a rowboat can do so each of the open evenings without campfires during the week. So we do campfires on Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday, but on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, when we have a lot of different evening activities, one of those is open boating. where just about anybody who wants to can don a life jacket and take out a rowboat or a canoe. So certainly non-swimmers are welcome to come down to the waterfront after supper on those evenings and take out a boat with their friends.
Absolutely. All right, Ash. And then last thing here we need to mention is BSA medical forms and outdoor release forms.
Oh, yes, some more forms. Of course, everybody needs a BSA medical form. That's pretty standard protocol at this point. Because the camp is a week-long camp, that does require Part C as well. This is something that you're probably familiar with, but that Part C of the standard BSA medical form does require an examination by a medical provider. And that will keep on record. That has to also, sort of like the swim test, has to have been done within the last year. Occasionally we get people who send in forms that have a physical from a year and a half ago, and that's not going to count. The date on the form when the doctor signed it has to be within the last 12 months in order for us to accept that for the week.
Yep.
That's what it mentions right there, until the month.
And yeah, and so just to be specific on that, if your medical form is signed July 17th, 2022, that form is valid until the end of July. So it'll go until that month's end. So it'll go till July 31st of 2023. So keep that in mind.
That's a good point. There's also a parental outdoor release form. This one's on that same page that we've been referencing. That's separate from the medical form, but it's probably best to just attach them together. That's just a separate form that has to do with other regulations for summer camps. But we've got another form that we need for each youth participant done. For the past 3 years, we've required a COVID-19, what we call an at-risk form, sort of explaining some of the different situations involving COVID going on. At this time, we don't anticipate that we're going to need those forms this summer. If anything changes, we'll let you know. But as of right now, the only forms per person that you'll have to have are the medical form and the outdoor release. And then the swim test and the special diet form would be per unit or per troop.
Yep. Sending in forms ahead of time, we typically like those at a minimum of at least a week beforehand. What that does, you still have to go through a medical screening process, but it's a little bit briefer just because we've had time to review the form and to ensure that we've got the allergies we needed. Because what we do is we make an allergy list that we share with directors around camp, and making sure we've got all the details. We go ahead and fill out our buddy tags. So that's already done. So it eliminates a little bit of time during the check-in process. You still have to go through, but it's not as in detail as sitting there saying, okay, we see, here's your form. All right. We see are you allergic to, gluten, you're allergic to bees, you're allergic to this type of grass, whatever it may be. And so it just makes it a little bit briefer. We're able to get those forms in our hand, go ahead and get the information we need off of it and move forward. So it does save time on the front end. So the way you can send those in at least a week ahead of time, preferably a couple weeks ahead of time. Actually, we prefer those forms come in through mail. That is the HIPAA approved way of sending forms, is come through mail. So USPS, FedEx, UPS, whatever it may be. And it's always good to give us a heads up of when those are coming. Shoot us an email and say, hey, drop these in the mail. They're going to be there on Tuesday. That way we can let Annette know over at the Health Lodge that she's got forms coming in and she can take a look at them. So that's how we can kind of do that pre-check process.
I'll mention I think we've said this before, but we do receive mail from every major carrier every day of the week. So whether it's USPS, FedEx, UPS, Amazon, we get deliveries from all of them every day pretty much. So whenever you send those, of course, let us know. But as long as it says, Camp Raven Knob, something about, attention Health Lodge on the outside or something like that, we'll make sure it gets to the right place. Make sure that our health staff gets that when they arrive.
Yep, absolutely. All righty. And also, Max did put in there healthlodge@ravenknob.com. Health Lodge at Raven Knob. If you have any sort of medical questions, our team there is always responsive to that email. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them an email and they can get back to you. Tammy, those forms much preferred they come to 266 Raven Knob Road, which is the camp address, so in Mount Airy. All right. If you haven't checked out the Parents Guide, we definitely want to make sure that you share that information with parents. Ash, I'm going to add you back
Sure.
in here. If you can click on our Parents
Yep.
Guide there.
Usual page right here takes us here.
Yep.
We can open up the Parents Guide over here in this tab.
And to mention the last question that came in right here, can we bring forms in person instead of by mail? Yes, if you want to drop them by camp ahead of time, that's by all means. If you come with your forms just to camp right off the bat, you're not doing the pre-check stuff. They'll just go through a medical screening process where they're going to ask a few questions to each scout, fill out the buddy tag. It does take a little bit of time, a part of the check-in process, but it's what we're required to do. If you want to bring them by camp, if you're in the area and want to drop them by all means.
We would definitely recommend bringing or giving the link to this Parents Guide to all the parents of the youth in your troop. This is a great resource for them to learn about all kinds of stuff they may not know about camp, whether that's how to get in contact with us, what they should pack for their scout, our dress code, medical forms and medications, what the schedule looks like, what they should send with their scout for the trading post, how to send them mail and messages, and how to visit diets and all that kind of stuff. This is kind of the premise of what we're looking for there. Here's some contact information. I'll just kind of show you a couple highlights. Here's a packing list. This talks about where to find our dress code, medical forms and medications, and what to do there. Here's kind of what we recommend scouts do for the trading post. Hunter, I don't know if you want to say anything about that specifically.
Yeah, I do. One of the with the trading post, we accept all major credit cards, Apple Pay, the other type of electronic. Sorry, I'm an Apple
Google
person,
Pay.
Google Pay. There you go. And cash, of course. Oftentimes, kids come to camp with cash, and I will say that we collect a whole lot of lost $1 bills, $5 bills, and trying to get a $5 bill back to 600 kids in camp is near impossible. So we like to recommend what an option is to get a reloadable debit card. Put some options on there. What that is that parents can get that card. They can monitor how much they've spent on Monday. If they spent all their $50 on Monday on slush puppies, it's highly possible. But if they want to make sure that they've got slush puppies the rest of the week, they could add more funds to it if need be. So it's a pretty slick process. We've got a lot of scouts that have started doing that. And when they lose that card, if we find it and we're able to get it back in our hands, we can typically find out who the owner of that card is and get it back to them. So it's a great way to keep up with it all. Kid's not walking around with 12 cents in his pocket trying to get back. So it makes a lot of sense with a reloadable card. Oftentimes your bank can do that for you. So feel free to go, have parents go by their bank and talk to them about it. But it's a great way. And it also teaches kids about responsibility of having a card and keeping up with it at a young age, because I guess we'll all have them at some point in time.
So there's some information there.
Yep.
Here's all of our things about sending mail to camp. We also have a send a scout a message feature where you can sort of just send a little brief electronic message to your scout, which we then print and kind of deliver on paper to them at various meals. Here's information about visiting. We do have a visitor's night on Wednesday night during the week, which is a great time to come visit your scout and the rest of their unit and attend the campfire with them. And here's some information about what to expect there. More diet information, which we talked about a second ago. And then a camp map as well, so that parents can kind of see their way around. So that's the most of what's in the Parents Guide, but certainly a great thing to be sharing with the parents of the youth in your unit.
Absolutely. And on our next webinar, we'll talk a little bit about what check-in day is like, how to be best prepared for check-in day, what it's like on Monday morning, getting our individualized passports and a lot of that. So we'll explain a lot of that stuff as we get a little bit closer. So staying tuned for that because we definitely want to make sure you are as prepared as possible rolling in. But this Parents Guide, we brought this out last year. We sent it to a lot of our frequent flyer troops and some new troops to summer camp. And so we took in input from many of our troops to try to make sure we've got the right information in there. And it seemed to really help last year, given that option. All right. So
We had a couple questions, one
Yep.
about ice and one about visitors night that might be worth talking about there.
I wish I could remember how much the bag of ice cost.
I don't remember. Tyler,
It's
do you remember?
around $3 or $3.50. Don't be mad at me if that's wrong. It is a 7-pound bag though. And,
So to answer that question, our trading post does sell bags of ice from like a retail ice distributor. And that's where you can get ice throughout the week to refill coolers if you need to do that.
Yep.
And then regarding Parents' Night, the meals for the leaders and scouts that are there for the week are provided. If you ask for that, then we can deliver you meals on Wednesday night. A lot of units choose to purchase their own dinner, order pizza or whatever it might be. But if we provide dinner for you, we'll provide it at no cost for the people who are there for the week. If parents want to eat as well, I think it's something like $7 a person or something like that for them.
Yeah. And we will be talking about Wednesday night family light at the next webinar. We are just to kind of give everybody an update. I said I was going to told Ash, I said, if we don't get to this by the end, remind us. And I apologize. We're at 40 minutes. We went a little long, but hopefully we got you some good information here. I do want to mention that we are looking at going back to a 1 meal shift in our dining hall to kind of simplify the process for everything and simplify the daily schedule. But we are still in the process of working all this out. One of the things we were talking about, we were like, let's just kick this thing back to normal. And we're like, wait a second. Most of the kids that have attended Ravenov at this point don't know what that's like. Most of our staff that started working in 2020 don't know what that's like from our perspective. So we're going to take it as an opportunity to try to make sure that any loose ends we had prior to moving into more of a COVID-centric camp, we're going to kick those knots to the curb and try to work this out to the best of our ability to make it a smooth process on every end. So there's a lot of options on the table. So here we are moving into another phase, and we're able to kind of change things up and make it better and make it a smoother process for everybody. So I think we all missed that kind of hour after each meal, especially if you were in the second shift meal, to kind of kick back, relax, and recoup for the day.
There's a question that just came in about
the trains. If you are arriving to Camp Ravenov by plane, train, no boats, I don't think you're going to make it up the Mitchell or Fisher River. But if you're arriving by that, what you'll need to do is contact myself to get the details so we can get that squared away. What we typically do arriving by train is that you will arrive a day early on Saturday. We will pick you up from the Raleigh or Cary Amtrak stations. We will typically go find something to eat, typically at Golden Corral, because kids are picky, and Golden Corral has lots of options, and a soft serve ice cream machine. And then we'll get you on to camp and get you settled in. Typically, when folks arrive by train, we know that you probably don't have transportation unless you have somebody that's driving up a troop trailer or whatnot, and we will try to provide you with some transportation to run into Walmart for that day before program kicks off and those vans are used elsewhere. But if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to work any way I can. So it's a sweet option for those folks that come by train. It's a lot of our folks from the Tampa and Miami area take advantage of that. So I highly encourage it. It's a neat experience for the kids, and it saves you on that driving time. You can kick that seat back and take you a nap or listen to a good audio book, but that's not me. So anyways, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Tyler Ronhart, our program director, and he's going to talk a little bit about our camp staff development program. So Tyler, take it away.
Yes. So talking about the Camp Staff Development Program, or the CSD program, it's an opportunity for scouts that are at least 14 years of age to get the camp staff experience as a volunteer staff for 2 weeks throughout the summer. They live and they work, they eat, sleep with the rest of the staff, and get the experience of being a full-time staff member for that 2-week period. They assist in teaching and the other program delivery that we have, working in the trading post, ranger staff, whatever area that might be. I would highly recommend it for scouts that have done NYLT or scouts that want to further develop their leadership abilities, and especially ones that are interested in potentially working at camp in the future. But like I mentioned, you have to be at least 14 years old. And I'm going to drop in the chat the link to apply for the program. That's ravenob.com/staff application. And there is a little drop down box to select camp staff development or CSD. If you have any questions about that, you can email me at programdirector@ravenob.com and we can talk about that. But other than that, I encourage you to reach out to your scouts and your troop and have them apply. It's a really great program. I know that Hunter has done that, and lots of other scouts we've had gone through that program turned out really great and did some great things for us. So like I said, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, and information on the website is ravenob.com/CSD if you need a little bit more information about that.
Yep. And the reason we're promoting this is that we're a little light on our CSDs that we typically see each summer. We normally see somewhere between 25, 35, sometimes over 40. And right now we're about 15. So we got room for them, particularly in the second half of the summer. In the July months, got plenty of opportunities, and it really is a great experience to see what it's like. There's some folks that are curious about working on camp staff. They come and do it, and they're like, that grind's not for me. And we got other folks that, and typically this is what happened is they want to take it, full nozzle. They want it all they can get. And that's what we like to see is them come in. Typically most CSDs at the end of their 2 weeks are like, can I stay for the rest of the summer? We're like, we would, but there's somebody coming in right behind you. So it's a great opportunity to come in and see camp from a different perspective at a young age. So pretty neat opportunity. All right. Let's see here. All righty. Thought I had, there it is. Of course, if you have any questions, you contact us at any point, registration@ravenob.com, or you can contact myself or Wesley. We are located at the Old Hickory Council office currently. So that number is 336-760-2900. If you do call camp, you'll get a very nice sounding audio message, and you'll select through the options, and typically it'll ring one of our phones. And again, if you're up late at night working with your troop, 8, 9 o'clock at night, we know you're standing there trying to get answers to them. Feel free to call us. If we don't get to you, send us a text message or an email. And between Wesley and myself and the other folks, we typically try to respond as quick as we can, because we know you want to get that information out to your scouts, and it prevents a week going by and then it may be slipping by. Again, we do have 2 more webinars coming up. The next one is May 1st. We're going to talk about some of those check-in details, what it's like on Sunday, what it's like on Monday. We'll hopefully have some dining hall procedures and daily schedule completely narrowed down for everyone, and talk about our passports and our Wednesday nights and all sorts of good stuff. So we've got a lot happening. We've got some changes, trying to scale things back and grow things forward and make it all work for everybody. So we're very excited. And then in June, we're just going to try to cover any questions that anybody has that comes up, and reiterate a few last minute things to make sure that you are fully prepared to come to camp. I do want to mention one thing that came up and that we get questions about right now quite often is, do you have internet at camp? Yes, we do have internet at camp. We have a Scoutmasters Lounge that's great to go in if you have a leader that needs to do a little bit of work while they're at camp, even though they probably don't want to. They can go to the Scoutmasters Lounge, Trading Post, admin building. There's several options for internet around camp. If you need to do a Zoom call and really need a private place to do that, you come see our administration team, and we'll get you set up somewhere where we can get you on some good high-speed internet, so you can deliver a presentation or be a part of a meeting that's needed. So we're always happy to help and try to make it easier for you leaders that come to camp, because we know you're taking time out of your life to make an impact on others, and we want to make sure that you get the best experience while you're there. We do have some really big news coming. If you follow us on our Facebook page, you may have saw a picture of a telephone pole that just randomly appeared in camp. I'm not going to quite tell you what that is just because I don't want to jinx it on our end, as it's still a work in progress. But we do have some updates coming via telephone poll. So we'll see what's on that telephone poll here in the next few months. But just stay tuned there. We may be able to tune things up a little bit throughout camp. And then lastly, I think that is it. I do want to answer. There's one question. You've got scouts at Cripple Creek. If you do have scouts at Cripple Creek and you want to go see them, by all means, go out and see them. It's about a little less than a mile walk from the main part of camp out into the valley, as we call it, into the backcountry of camp. It's a great place to go and hang out for an afternoon or an evening. So be sure to walk out there and check out your scouts and all the fun they're having at Cripple Creek. And then follow us on our social media. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, be sure to do that down below or off to the side or whichever side it is. Hit that subscribe button in case we are running behind on an announcement for a meeting. You can get those alerts directly to your phone or your email that something's coming up. And we appreciate everybody's flexibility with changing last week. We just had a very long March of 4 weekends in a row of different programming at camp, capping it off with about 1,000 people at our Spring into Scouting Cub Scout adventure weekend, where the weather was all over the place. We had to send everybody home late. So we appreciate your flexibility. We were just dog tired, just to be honest with you. So nothing crazy came up, but our staff needed a breather after a rough month of March of program at it. So anyways, that's my famous words. I will leave it at that. If anybody has any questions, again, always reach out to us. We're happy to help any way we can. And we will see you at camp in, what are we at? What's the countdown to? Anybody look? I don't know.
We're getting close.
We're definitely getting close. Let's see here. We are at 68 days away from week 1, 2023. 68 days, 17 hours. So we'll be ready for you, and we hope you're excited for a great time at camp. And that is all, folks. Have a wonderful evening.